Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday night, which means it's another great night for professional wrestling fans, whether you're in for AEW Dark, whether you're in for NWA Power, as we, of course, are for covering, as we will be covering today on PowerrrOut, whether you're watching NXT tonight. Like I said, just a great time to be a wrestling fan, a great night to be a wrestling fan, and this is the review show for you. We're going to kick off everything with a bit of a, with PowerrrOut of our in-depth review of all things NWA and specifically tonight's episode of NWA Power, followed immediately by the War Report with JPJ and company discussing tonight's NXT. Tonight, joining me on PowerrrOut, I am joined by Jay Cal of the Alliance blog. How you doing, friend?
I'm doing well, man. How's it going? Thanks for having me on here tonight.
It's my absolute pleasure to be welcoming you to the show. Dude, you've been following NWA for quite a long time and also been creating content surrounding the NWA for a long time. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing it for, officially since 2003. I started writing about the NWA for SoCal Uncensored. Dave Marquez started promoting the NWA matches out here in Southern California. And I was so excited that he was doing this that I started writing about it on the website. And then I just followed it from there. And it was a natural maturation. Eventually, I started my own website, kind of paying homage to SoCal Uncensored, the way that it helped out the Southern California area. I was hoping to boost the NWA and all of its territories from across the country, really across the globe. And we've been doing it ever since.
Amazing. Absolutely, sir. So you are probably one of the more, well, not that I'm not trying to throw any of my past guests under the bus, certainly, but you're probably one of the more knowledgeable NWA historians, if I may say so.
I've been around for a while.
I popped up a couple names who are joining us on YouTube right now. Hello to Ed, who valued member of the Love Wrestling team, who's going to be joining JPJ for tonight's War Report immediately after PowerrrOut. Terry, thanks again for joining us after joining us last week. Happy to have everyone joining us. And I see a little flourish of people popping in. Once again, not the NWA Power is not the only show we're going to be reviewing tonight. We're going to be transferring over to the War Report immediately after PowerrrOut with JPJ, Ed, and Astrid discussing all things NXT. But Jay and I are going to be talking about the National Wrestling Alliance. But outside of NWA, Jay, what else do you watch?
I am an avid Championship Wrestling from a Hollywood fan. I do watch a lot of the Hollywood content, but I've kind of started following that United Wrestling Network. So I've been watching a little bit of the Memphis show. I was watching Arizona when they were airing new episodes, and I'm getting real excited about what they're doing in Atlanta. It's kicking off in September.
What What's going on specifically?
Oh, the United Wrestling Network is premiering a show in Atlanta. In fact, it's actually going to be on the Peachtree channel in some of the Canadian markets. Okay. Something you might want to even look forward to, because I know Dave Marquez understands that there will be a lot of Canadian talent out there, and he said, he's looking forward to using a show that could bring in some Canadian flavor, if you will.
Absolutely. I joke about it all the time, and it's only half true, but whenever I see a good wrestler, I just naturally assume they're from Canada.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to go. I mean, come on. There's so many great wrestlers from Canada. So I mean, that's an easy thing to assume.
Once again, I want to remind everyone who's joining us for our tonight's stream. This is the NWA coverage with PowerrrOut on Love Wrestling. We're going to be discussing all things NWA, especially the episode of NWA Power that aired earlier tonight. Immediately following will be the War Report with JPJ, Ed Freeze, and Astrid discussing tonight's NXT. Jay and I are just in a little pre-show phase. We're just chit-chatting while NXT goes into their overrun. We're not going to wait until their overrun is finished because, of course, I want to be respectful of the War Report start time and everything. So we're going to get going in just a few seconds. But with that, Jay, anything you would like to let the audience know before we head into the show proper?
Well, sure. I mean, I think this show is great. I've actually watched a couple times. My friend Tim with the NWA Gold has been a co-host on, I think, 2 occasions.
Very true.
If you guys are totally digging the NWA and you're looking for more NWA content, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, we do a pre-show that gets you ready for NWA Power, where we talk about the NWA news and information that's going on. And then also we do our own version of the recap show, the Alliance Guys podcast. Also, we do that on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. And again, we're just more NWA content. So if you're really digging the National Wrestling Alliance, as you should, and you want more, let us be your source, along with this channel right here, and we can all talk wrestling together.
Absolutely. And the Alliance blog, one of the top tier NWA coverages you can find on the World Wide Web. That'll be the first of many plugs that I encourage Jay to drop during the broadcast. But with that, we're going to head into the show proper, and I'm going to let Mr. J set the tone.
Ladies and gentlemen, power is over. But that does not mean for one instant of a second that the fun is over. Without a doubt, you are here because the power is out. So stick around, because it's Power Out. Yeah, it's Power Out.
What's going on, wrestling fans? Thanks so much for spending your Tuesday evening with Love Wrestling. My name is Zach Routh. I am the host of Power Out, your coverage for NWA Power. This broadcast will immediately be followed with the War Report, hosted by JPJ, joined by Ed Freeze and Astrid, discussing all things NXT. You won't need to leave this broadcast. You can hang out right here. Once Power Out is done, the War Report begins. Tonight, joining me to cover tonight's NWA Power and Week 2 of the Champions Series, Jay Cal of the Alliance blog. Man, you're wearing so many hats that support the National Wrestling Alliance. You got the website, you got the podcast, and you're joining me on Power Out. Thanks so much for joining me, friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I love the NWA, and I love talking about the NWA. So I think this is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, it was once we had Tim Wood, as we were discussing the pre-show, you kind of got on my radar. You tuned in for his sake, and you and I have been touching base since. Glad to have you on the show. Like, this feels a little overdue, and I'm happy that's finally happening.
And it's a transcontinental broadcast because I'm out here in sunny Southern California, and you're out in Quebec. Right?
Yeah, up here in Montreal, we're experiencing a bit of a heat wave, so it's probably our weather is probably closer to one another than it usually is.
No
Transcoastal, transcontinental, crossing borders. That's how big Power Out's getting right now, and that feels good. That feels very good. First thing I want to pick your brain on, and this is like very peripheral to NWA, but like it feels like something that we should mention. Ric Flair recently released by the WWE. You know, we can only speculate. This is like fresh news, confirmed today by WWE after having been speculated the day before. I don't know. Do you think the waves of this release could be felt in the NWA?
I mean, gosh, it sure would be nice, right? I tweeted at the NWA, and I kind of did it in happenstance, just kind of hoping, outside of hope that maybe, just maybe, I might get someone to think about it. And I'm sure, look, William Patrick Corgan is so invested in the NWA history and the tradition. And trust me, it's no mistake that, they're running in St. Louis, that they've ran in Nashville, that they ran in Atlanta, and also in Charlotte. So I'm confident that he's well aware of the history of the NWA and what Ric Flair means to the history of the 10 pounds of gold and the National Wrestling Alliance. So I think from that perspective, they would love to have him there. However, in the world of wrestling, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So I would imagine that he might just be out of their price range, or maybe even unavailable, considering where he may be going. However, man, if it could happen, I mean, we're only about 25 days away from the pay-per-views. It sure would be nice to see the Nature Boy in St. Louis to celebrate the 73rd anniversary.
That would be an absolute spectacle. And, Ed's in accordance with us, NWA 73, that could be a lot of fun. He does bring up a good question. Does Flair have a non-compete? It's very likely, very plausible. I'm not really going to jump into speculation about the concrete terms of his contract because, he was more of like an ambassador role, which was a great fit for him. And frankly, I couldn't speak intelligently on whether that's subject to the same non-compete clause that a main roster star would be. But man, we can hope if Ric Flair shows up and maybe he's like, even if he just presented 10 pounds of gold to the winner of the main event between Aldis and whoever he may be coming to face, man, that would warm the heart of the collective NWA fan base. Yeah, absolutely.
Not a dry eye in the house, guaranteed.
So we are here to discuss week 2 of the Champions Series on NWA Power. Once again, we kind of kick off with the same video package we got last week, just a kind of summary of the point system of the card that we'll be enjoying tonight. We get a sense of the team captains. It's all very paint by numbers, and that's setting the tone of the show. Totally fair. Before we jump into that first match, though, I want to get something out because they say something early on in commentary that just kind of distracted me because I had been waiting for them to announce some sort of stakes for this Champions Series. Now, I might be off because Josiah McDonald, WR Central on Twitter, pointed it out to me that he heard the stakes were announced before. But I don't think they did a good job of hyping it because I do pay attention to the show, and this was the first time I was hearing about it. What's your take on this?
No, I agree with you. I feel like so one of my biggest qualms with the NWA is the fact that everything is so overly booked, and a lot of things are just convoluted. And this, although the Champions Series has been a breath of fresh air, and I really have been digging it, you're right. The award system has not really been clearly specified. From my understanding, and anyone can feel free to edit me, but it sounds like the winning captain will be able to give a title shot to somebody. They haven't really specified, but I imagine it's someone on the team. So perhaps if Camille and Idol win, Camille could give maybe a tag team title match to Latimer and Adonis, or a world heavyweight match for Latimer versus Aldis. I think she would have that authority. Or they could take a sabbatical, so who's ever on their team, they would never have to defend the title against for an entire year. So going back to, let's say Aldis, if Aldis's team wins, then he would not have to defend the title against anybody on his team for an entire calendar year.
It's
a little
bizarre.
Yeah.
From what I understand, and again, we might be hearing different things from the same source because the flow of information is not always the best coming out of NWA. If I'm not mistaken, I think the legend in the captain pairings gets the title shot, and they can award it to whoever they see fit. Okay. And while the champion gets a 1-year immunity clause or something to that effect. I get a sense that maybe they haven't landed on what they want to do with those terms exactly, but also gave themselves enough room to play and be flexible as they see fit. But We'll see how it goes. I was just relieved to finally have some sort of stakes, even though they weren't exactly as concrete as I would hope. But we move on to that first match. We get a Kenzie Page, captained by Camille and Austin Idol, taking on Lady Frost, captained by Aaron and Taryn. Frost takes control early in this match, and she holds it for a better part of it. She's just dominating Kenzie Page. And honestly, the finish comes very quickly. Kenzie takes a beating for, a solid 6, 7, 8 minutes before she just surprises Lady Frost with a roll up after after Frost had control for a better part of it. Admittedly, I had some technical difficulties during this match, so it prevented me from enjoying it in full. What can you tell me about what you liked in this one?
Okay, well, let's start off with who Kenzie Page is, a 20-year-old kind of up-and-comer. Her record in the National Wrestling Alliance, at least on Power, she's 0-1. Now, she did wrestle against Camille just 2 weeks ago on the 24th in Charlotte, where she unsuccessfully challenged for the Burke. So she's someone I believe that the NWA sees value in. And, you know, for the fact that she's been involved in some of the more higher profile matches on Power, I think speaks to how much they are expecting out of her down the road. Lady Frost is someone who I really, really enjoy. She seems like to be the total package to me. She's got a great look, got the gimmick. She is athletic. She can move in the ring. She's believable. I think she's a future superstar, but for whatever reason, the NWA hasn't really pushed her that way. She's 0-2 in-ring competition. She was dominant in this match. She could have ended it a couple of times. She was being a little bit on the cocky side, a little bit on the arrogant side, and ended up losing when Mackenzie rolled her up. But to me, it was an all Lady Frost match, a showcase of how good she is, but the arrogance, maybe a lack of a manager or some sort of in-ring presence got the best of her. So I thought it was a great match, but again, Kenzie got the win, and Team Idol and Camille got the points.
Yep, absolutely. It's interesting. Like, this whole champion series has kind of played with who the baby faces and the heels are by, just by association.
Yeah.
Because like we've seen Lady Frost be like the baby face against Taryn Terrell, and on a few other occasions, of course. But I liked it in the little bit that I saw, barring my technical difficulties. I did like to see Lady Frost be like that cocky, arrogant heel. She got a big laugh out of me by quoting Andre 3000 of Outcast, what's cooler than being cool, while her team shouts ice cool.
Yeah.
That got a pop out of me, I'll admit.
That was good.
Yeah, very solid match. We move on to the second contest of the evening. This is probably the longest match of the card, and I'm probably going to change my answer as I go dissecting the rest of the card, but I think this was my match of the night. We got Crimson, captained by Nick Aldis and Melina, versus the Mystery Man. Both wrestlers, they're very evenly matched early on into the contest until Crimson finds ground. Some early work from Crimson trying to pull the mask off the Mystery Man, keeping him on defense. Little flourishes of offense by the Mystery Man, but he can't find his way out of it. Death Valley Driver by Crimson takes Mystery Man, gets him to roll out of the ring, get a showdown out there. Body slam on the concrete by Crimson. And Mystery Man just keeps surviving, man. Crimson keeps going for the pin, 1, 2, 3, but like he just keeps kicking out. The end comes, Mystery Man hits a big power bomb, literally out of nowhere. Stacks him up for 1, 2, kicks out, locks him in the single leg crab. We hear the bell. I thought we had to tap out, but this was a case of a time limit draw. Once again, I really like this match. I like both of these guys. I like the story of the Mystery Man that's unraveling, and I like that it protected both men.
Absolutely. I think it was essential to protect both wrestlers, right? It's essential that Crimson comes out of here looking good. It's essential for the Mystery Man to come out looking good. Now, Crimson's a tag team wrestler. He's only had one singles match in his time in the NWA, a one-on-one match where he was victorious. But in this match, like, I feel like if he would have lost, it would have taken something out of the War Kings. It would have hurt both him and Jack Stain. And I know they're not connected in this series, but I just feel like it'd be another reason to kind of look down on that pairing. And the Mystery Man, he needs to look good. I mean, they're building him as this super wrestling machine. He's got no time for anything. His promos are succinct. He's not giving out any information. So he doesn't have a whole lot of persona. So he needs to be like a wrestling machine. And I found it very interesting who the Mystery Man has kind of felt like a heel in all of his promos and in his one match with the Mims. I really felt like he was a heel. And Crimson always kind of felt like a baby face. But tonight, again, associated by the teams that they're on, I feel like the roles were reversed. And I feel like Crimson was doing a lot more heelish tactics, wrestling more malicious. And of course, the Mystery Man was like that babyface in peril. Never give up, never surrender. And then that beautiful power bomb at the end that he turns into the half crab, very reminiscent of a young Samoa Joe who used to do what he would call that King Kong drop, where he'd do the power bomb into the STF. Oh, I popped because I thought he was going for the STF, but nonetheless, it was still a cool moment. And then I really like the fact that he started working over the knee while he had the move in place. It's the little things in wrestling that really make them meaningful. And in this moment, beautiful.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That was a nice little detail. He just kept working the knee. Before I drop an additional comment, I want to shout out Bobby. Lady Frost impressed tonight on NWA. We couldn't agree with you more. But Bobby, please elaborate. Love to know what exactly you liked about Lady Frost tonight. Terry, Mystery Man can withstand a beating. We certainly learned that about him tonight because he just had zero quit in him. And the story there was a lot of fun. Now, this is another part of the larger problem of this champion series. I was distracted very early in the match because there was some confusion at the commentary table. Yeah. Again, I am not faulting Joe Galley or Tim Storm on this one. I think this is just a symptom of the issue at large. They kept asking Melina for like a good two minutes or so why she picked the Mystery Man to be part of her team. And she didn't really have an answer for that. And they just kept asking her, like, oh, was this an Aldis decision? And then Joe Galley finally cues in, oh, no, Mystery Man isn't on your team. Crimson is. You picked Crimson. And again, I can't blame them. This whole thing is just so convoluted and confusing that, again, like I was so distracted by what was going on at the table. I missed some of the early action. I just had to rewind it and watch the match from the beginning just to get a fresh sense of it.
I do have to add in, you said don't blame Joe and Tim, but man, I feel like this was a big production flub. In fact, it had me like gaslighting myself, like, wait, what happened here? And especially when this show was recorded about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, I really feel like a very simple edit and post would have cleared all of this up. You could tell how uncomfortable Melina was with it, trying to, she understood that something was not correct, but she didn't want to call them out on it because maybe she thought she was in the wrong. So she just kind of played with it, and it just made everything awkward. And normally I love awkward, but this was uncomfortable for me. And I just thought, man, a 5-minute dub, like a 30-second dub could have cleared that out, and no one would have been the wiser. And they didn't. And I really think, like, man, that's a production issue.
It's the first of several that I discovered that I'll call attention to as the night goes on. But yeah, like 30 seconds in post production, I don't even think you need all three performers. You get Joe Galley just to go in and call the action that he's seeing in the ring, and easy fix, band-aid solution, and it's done. Yep. And it's a shame because, man, like the early action, like they were telling that story. I loved how I mentioned this, but Crimson was going for the mask, trying to like unmask him and everything. Just that just got in the way of making the match all that much better. And again, I'm not faulting anyone on that side of the camera. This was a production thing.
I am. I'm faulting. They're all culpable. They're all.
Absolutely fair. Now we've been kind of like discussing Mystery Man softly on PowerrrOut. I know who it is now. Do you know who it is at this point? Yeah, fair enough. It's kind of a shame because like it doesn't feel like this is going to be the kind of Mystery Man that's going to pay off where like, oh, it's Curtis Axel, or just for like top of my head there. It's right. It's a very talented wrestler. He's great, but it's not going to be a reveal that's going to shock anyone. And I worry that's what some people might expect.
I think it's easy for me to say, knowing who it is, oh, you guys need to temper your expectations. But in reality, you have to remember the financial constraints of the National Wrestling Alliance. They're not able to go out there and secure the top name free agents. Like if someone thinks that's Daniel Bryan in the ring, like, I'm sorry, guys, it's not. It's not a top star. It's not a name you've seen on AEW regularly or a name you've seen in WWE regularly. But it is a great wrestler, as evident tonight, put on a hell of a match with Crimson. And I think that's okay. And I think we're not going to get that big reveal. I don't think that's ever going to be a thing. I think it's always going to be the man with the mask, and I'm cool with that. Mr. Wrestling too, the Destroyer, the Spoiler. I mean, the NWA has a rich history of masked men, and with Abyss and Blue Demon Jr. having held the 10 pounds of gold. The same rules don't apply like they used to for the Midnight Rider or the Yellow Dog. So we do know that at some point, if the Mystery Man chooses to challenge, he doesn't have to remove that mask to have a shot at the opportunity to wrestle for the 10 pounds of gold. So I'm totally good with it.
That's true. That's absolutely fair. Your references are absolutely on point when it comes to NWA's rich history. Like, they've got a very understated history about when it comes to masked performers, that there's not a lot of celebration in pop and circumstance, because when people think NWA, they think of Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race. Not a lot of minds go to Mr. Wrestling and the litany of names that you just brought to the broadcast.
I surprised myself, to be honest. Those just popped up like that. I surprised myself.
You are a student of the game. I commend you for it. We move on to the next contest. They call these guys the alternates. Truth be told, I lost track of who's on what team, at least at the very beginning. But we get Sal Rinauro versus Colby Carino versus Jordan Clearwater versus Jeremiah Plunkett. 7 points are going to the winning team, and -3 for whoever gets pinned in this fatal 4-way contest. Match starts with Carino rubbing everyone the wrong way and kind of taking a bit of a beating from everyone, but he powders. He gets out of the ring. He finds his way to get Sal out of the ring and throw him into the ring post and get back in the ring and kind of get back on Jeremiah Plunkett's good side, putting Jordan Clearwater in more of a 2-on-1 situation. What's going on here? That goes on for a better part of the match until Sal's able to recover. Him and Jordan Clearwater, they have a nice little flourish working side by side until it all falls apart. Plunkett and Colby are fighting head to head before Plunkett hits a big DDT and scores 7 points for Team Aldis. Really good stuff here. This was a lot of fun, very quick pace. Colby's work try not to swear too much on this broadcast, but chicken shit heel. Sorry, Spencer. That's my one swear for the month. But he's just wonderful. I'm loving Colby Carino right now.
I want to first address this whole the scoring system.
Yeah,
because this, to me, again, these are the alternates. These weren't picked by the captains. This was literally the office choosing these alternates for the teams. So when we mention convoluted and like weird storyline, I don't know why these match had any impact on the championship series. These are alternates. So just in that, it was just weird. It just didn't make sense to me. So for them awarding 7 points, I think that's cool. I don't know why someone had to lose points, because no one, again, the Fatal 4-Way was the first time that we saw a multi-man match in this series. So I could see why you might award more points, but in no other match did someone lose points for losing. So again, it's a little convoluted. I use that word a lot because I don't have a better word to use for it. The match itself, you're right, was absolutely fun. Colby Carino is really starting to come into his own. He's a kid that literally grew up in the NWA, so it's only fitting to me to see him back in the NWA and actually having an impact. Jeremiah Plunkett, I know a lot of modern day NWA fans aren't aware, but he's a former Southern heavyweight champion, and he was one of the guys chosen to wrestle Shinya Hashimoto, to Satoshi Kojima when Kojima came stateside to defend the 10 pounds of gold back in, I want to say like 2012, 2013.
Carino was.
Yeah. No, not Carino. Plunkett, excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's around. Sorry, I was bouncing around there.
No, all good.
Jeremiah Plunkett, to me, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for that guy, because he did kind of carry that NWA Saul Middle Tennessee area for quite some time. And again, they gave him such an honor of putting the into that match with Kojima. And then you've got Jordan Clearwater, who has made his name in my backyard in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He's a former Hollywood Heritage champion, had a really good match with Nick Aldis, a dark match at the Primetime Live series, really started coming into his own, but really hasn't found his way yet in the NWA. And of course, Sauronaro. Everybody loves Sauronaro. You can't say anything bad about that guy.
Saul. I've said this before. He might be NWA's like most pure baby face. Like you can't not root for the guy. The two notes I had about this one, aside from Kobe's wonderful heel work, I love the like little tag work between Sal and Jordan Clearwater. I think there might be something there. My favorite spot in the match, favorite spot of the night. They hit tandem bulldogs from opposite ends of the ring, high-fiving on the way. I'm like, oh, that just like, that's everything I love. That's everything I love right there. It was just so cute. But production error number 2 going into coming out of this one, the scorekeeper that popped in at the end of the match to let us know what happened. Scorekeeper just told me that Colby Carino won 7 points for Team Nick Aldis and Molina, while Plunkett cost Team Pope and Velvet -3. Again, that's not what happened. That's literally not what happened. And someone on the production side of the show really needs to catch that. This happened 5 seconds ago. I understand that this is a complicated premise with the championship series and all these points and all these teams. But if you want me to buy into it as a viewer, you guys got to sell it properly. And you can't sell me a broken toy.
I think little snafus like that, I positively said in the last match, it's the little things that make the difference. But it's also the little things that churn me off if you can't get it correct. The whole part with Galley and Storm talking to Molina about the Mystery Man, that was very nails on the chalkboard for me. And you're right, calling out that score the wrong way, it hurts the show. And it's such a simple fix. There's got to be somebody editing the show, or are they just, it's good enough. I just can't believe that's what they're doing.
It's disappointing that there's that lack of care. And I know that William Patrick Corgan cares about this product. I know that Nick Aldis cares about this product, and I know a better part of the roster cares too. But man, I hope so. I can't believe no one caught that. Yeah, I'm usually not this nitpicky, but this was the second snafu in this broadcast that is asking me to put faith that this point system and this team system is like perfectly in place. It's totally fine. It's okay if it's complicated, but make sure it's not broken. But that is what it is.
100%.
We move on. Sorry,
I can't say anything else. You're 100% right.
This championship series, I feel like it's a bit of a rival with me. I have a lot of production notes and it's been going on for weeks, but I'm going to laissez-faire because we have more matches to discuss. We got Kratos Jr., captained by Austin Idol and Camille, taking on Austin Idol's client, who's captained by Aaron and Taryn. Again, I've made it very clear I don't really like discussing matches with one of these individuals, so this one was hard for me to get invested in. Lots of just standing and posturing early on. The ref ejects Aaron Stevens from the corner for very unclear reasons. I didn't really catch what happened there. Match ends with an elbow drop onto Kratos with a bit of lack of confidence in the finish. Didn't seem it seemed like a 3 count, but no one was really like rejoicing or anything like that. Just seemed like, I don't know, someone was uncomfortable in that ring, and I'm not sure who.
I think everyone was. And I'm gonna follow your suit. We're gonna refer to him as Austin Idol's client. This isn't the first match that these two have had. They had one back for the Attack, which was the NWA's return to pay-per-view after almost an entire year layoff. And the match actually finished the same exact way, elbow drop. So lack of creativity. I've seen better from Kratos. And to be honest, this wasn't the worst match I've seen with Austin Idol's client. But it's hard for me to get behind somebody who I don't see a lot of value in. And now that's me. Obviously, the powers that be for the NWA see value in him. And I think there's a lot of interesting things they can do with him. They just haven't found a way to do it yet. So, again, it was a fine match, probably the weakest match of the night. But, we'll move forward.
That's all we can do. We move on to the main event. I actually thought this last match was the main event going in, and I was kind of relieved that had a better match to kind of cleanse my palate between Jax Dane and Slice Boogie. Again, Slice Boogie's on my radar. He's just one of the rising stars, and I love seeing him. I hear he's part of LAX and MLW now, which, all the power to him. He deserves all the success going forward. The match itself, we get a bit of they keep referring to this as a bit of a student versus protege scenario. And I know Jax Dane has kind of been looking out for Slice Boogie in spite of Boogie's rivalry with Dane's tag team partner. Very interesting dynamic. But again, match itself was solid, very straightforward. But the match comes with Dane picking up the W. What'd you think of this one?
So I thought this was a good match. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm a huge Jax Dane fan. I feel like he's severely underutilized on the NWA Power roster, outside of holding the tag team titles with Rob Conway, outside of being a former NWA North American champion when that title was still around, a former national champion, even unified those two belts momentarily, as a former world champion, having beaten Hiroshi Tenzan to become champion. I always feel like, man, they're really missing the boat with this guy. And I felt like before the pandemic, they started building towards something. That rivalry between he and Tim Storm was very fun, very exciting, and then it just tapered off.
Yeah.
And so this is actually like a rematch from a match we had a couple weeks ago where there was a no DQ match between the two, which ended very weirdly, and I'm sure you guys already covered that, but I haven't forgiven the NWA for that. I really think that Jax Dane and Crimson are better suited in a Legion of Doom Road Warrior style tag team, and they should be out there winning the tag titles, not really focusing on mentoring Slice Boogie. And don't get me wrong, Slice Boogie is a star in the making. He was the 2018 Southern California Rookie of the Year. He's held titles here locally in Southern California, trained out of the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy, the same place that has trained guys like Jake Atlas in NXT, Brody King in Ring of Honor, Tyler Bateman in Ring of Honor, Ruby Reyes in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Ray Rosas, and so many countless other talents. So he's got that pedigree of coming from this rich wrestling background. And I feel like he's got a ton of potential, but I haven't really seen it yet. But he sure can take a butt kicking. And this match between him and Jax really kind of filled the void for me, because I was tired of seeing Jax looking soft in the ring and being overly compassionate. This was the Jax I wanted to see. He got out there, he shoved him in the face, he smacked him around, and the clothesline he connected with to finish the match damn near spun him around 180 degrees. I loved it. It's exactly what I want to see out of Jax Dane. Slice Boogie took his beating like a champ. I don't even think he looked bad in the loss. He looked very good in that match, except for he got his shoulders pinned. Other than that, it was still a pretty good match. So I was happy with it. It was a great way to end the show. Not the best match of the night for me, but not too far from the top.
Absolutely, yeah, it's certainly better than the penultimate main event. But with that wraps up the second week of the Champion Series. Round 1 is now complete. Team Camille and Austin Idol are moving forward to the finals, as is Team Pope and Velvet Sky, while Team Aldis and Molina and Team Aaron and Taryn are eliminated. Now, before I let you go, I want to talk about, give us both the opportunity to talk about like our feelings about the show in general. And what I'd like to say is, man, all the technical problems aside, the litany of problems that we've already discussed about the Championship Series, the thing that is killing me right now is they have 2 pay-per-views at the end of the month. They have NWA 73, Empower. I have no sense of what those cards look like. And this Champion Series feels like it's put everything on pause. Like the tag team scene, like what's happening with La Rebellion, what's happening with Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch. That's all on pause. What's the women's, what's Empower look like? What is Mickie James doing? They're doing a better job building Empower on TNA Impact, on Impact Wrestling than they are in NWA. And I hate saying that, but man, that's my rant. That's my rant. I'm going to cut it off at a head before it becomes something so severe. I'm like, yeah. What's your takeaway here?
Well, my takeaway is like maybe we're saying we're cut from the same cloth, because And that's again, if you guys, of course, I'm glad you're all here watching us here. But if you enjoy more NWA content, I do a podcast on Thursday nights called the Alliance Guys Podcast, and we get into these things right here. You said earlier you're not a stickler, but we are sticklers, and we get into it. I really feel like the NWA, as much as this championship series has been fun, it's been a breath of fresh air. I really feel like they should have flipped it. And coming off of the pay-per-view, they should have went with the championship series, and then that would have given them some time to build up to the pay-per-view. I mean, this is your 73rd anniversary. The anniversary show is, I guess, supposed to be the biggest pay-per-view of the year. And so you would imagine that they're going to put a lot of attention towards it. But unfortunately, when you're recording your television program like 2 months before the pay-per-view, you don't even have a semblance of who's going to be on that show.
Yeah.
So they're really stuck in this bubble, and it's, again, I understand why they do that. It's money saving, it's time saving, it's getting all their ducks in a row. Unfortunately, things happen. Slice Boogie premiered for MLW. I don't know if he'll be able to be a part of the NWA going forward. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We know Fred Rosser is now signed exclusive to New Japan of America. So going forward, he won't be on that show. So if you're building something with him, forget it. So I really feel like that's detrimental to their success. However, that NWA family, the hashtag NWA fam, has really picked up the 73rd. There's like 3 seats left in the house. And I hear that the women's pay-per-view is selling pretty well as well. Their tickets are selling quickly. And you're right, there's been no card announced. We've heard that they're going to crown a new women's tag team champions at the Empower pay-per-view, but there has been no kind of format laid out. There's been no announcement of any teams in that tournament. We have a few names that have been listed through either the press conference or podcasts or even tweets that will be included, on top of Deonna Purrazzo being invited from Mickie James on Impact. And we know that there's a match between legit Layla Hirsch and the Bunny from AEW that's going to have some sort of implications for the championship match at Empower. But we really don't know other than that. And I think as a consumer, if you don't give me a card, I don't buy. I'm not going to wait for the last minute to, you know what I mean? Like, I want a card before I buy the pay-per-view. Now, I'm sure they'll get it, and they're going to get my money. The NWA will get my money. But I want a card first.
Yeah.
And like, just this past week in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla out here in Los Angeles, ran an event called Mystery Vortex 7. And they had no names announced on the card. But with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla's history, when they bring in Tommy End, when they bring in Super Dragon, when they bring in some of these names that we've grown up with or are very impressed to see, of course they're going to get you to buy that show. And they've built that reputation over the last 20-some years, where the NWA, even though it's been around forever, we have to be honest, Billy Corgan's been in business since 2017. They haven't started running pay-per-views until 2018.
Yeah.
So they don't have a long track record. They don't have a long history. Now, I get that the draw for the chase is the venue itself, the city itself, the history that goes with it. But I want matches before I buy anything. And I think it's great that there's such a supportive fan base, but I think it sets an unrealistic expectation. And now the NWA feels like confident that they don't need to give you a card before the pay-per-view because, hell, they sold out the arena already.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, friend, I am with you 100% on all that. And I also want to say that normally I would afford you the moment to plug what you're up to, but you did so seamlessly with your review of the show and your synopsis of what's going on in NWA's near future. So well, might I say, that our good friend Ed has given you a follow over on Twitter, and he plans on tuning into the show this coming Thursday. So Jay, thank you for being a part of the show. This was great talking to you. You are just a walking encyclopedia, man. I am going to be rewatching this very show just so I can catch the cliff notes of the history you dropped there. But with that comes to an end another episode of Power Out. Please do not leave this broadcast. Please hang around, because immediately after I go off, the good people at the War Report, we got Ed, we got Astrid. They're going to be reacting to tonight's NXT, and they're going to be doing so right after we are back. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, Jay, once again.
Absolutely. Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. My computer decided to freeze itself right before we started. That's always a good start to one of these. Joe's feeling under the weather, so it's just going to be Astrid and I. So, Astrid, welcome. What did you think of NXT tonight?
Hey, nice to be here today, reacting again to NXT. Thinking about everything that started today. I saw we started the show with Hit Row and Legato having their match. I wasn't expecting this match to be the opening match, to be honest. I kind of expected it to be higher up on the card. But at the same time, it made me wonder why they gave us this match today. I feel like it could have been saved for a takeover. But it was kind of short, I guess. So maybe that's why, just to give us a longer match, I guess, takeover. So I'm hoping for that at least. But it was okay, at least for me. I don't know, how about you?
I really enjoyed this match. I really enjoyed the back and forth that they had going through it. I'm really enjoying, and I'm going to try this sick and all. Hit Row. Having the opening spot, I think it brings the crowd up and it gives a real jolt to the crowd right as soon as the show starts, which I think is nice and kind of a little bit needed for an NXT show. Thank you, JPJ. But it really was a good match going back and forth, and I liked the finish. I really liked the whole Santos takes the chair. The heels take the cheap way out, and they get to beat down. They beat down Top Dollar, they beat down Adonis, and then they go ahead and they steal the grill from Swerve's mouth. Now, COVID safety, it doesn't play as well as it would have, pre-pandemic, but still a cool moment. I saw something on Twitter that said it's the type of thing your grandfather would have done when you were a kid to make you think all kinds of crazy stuff has happened. And then I loved that B-Fab came in and absolutely laid in a great chair shot on Wild. It sounded fantastic.
Yes.
Reminded me of the Shield breakup. And Wild absolutely just crumbles. And then Hit Row gets the advantage back. So I like that they're continuing this, but we didn't get a definitive finish. It could have gone either way. It looked like Hit Row was probably going to get the win.
Yeah.
But it's continuing this forward momentum with these two. And I really think that it's keeping Hit Row and Legato at this top level of, if they're not going to close the show, let's put them on right in the beginning and let's get the show off to a good start.
Yeah, and I feel like they any kind of, in a way, protected both teams. So, like, we never know how it's going to go next time as well, because we didn't get that winner, like you said. So maybe at TakeOver we'll get the definitive winner.
Yeah, and Takeover's already starting to look like an absolutely fantastic show, and we'll dive into that as we continue to go through. Speaking of having a hot start, we do want to thank our sponsors here at Love Wrestling with RK Athletics. If you're looking to get into any kind of workout routine or anything else, check out Rich King and the guys at RK Athletics. They're on Twitter. I think they're on Instagram. They are fantastic people. As Parrish always tells me, he's one of the best looking guys in the Canadian wrestling scene right now. So if you have any needs for that, check out RK Athletics. Coming out of this match, we had a recap going into Ridge Holland's first match back after his injury. And poor Iko Manjuro. This poor kid. He drew the short straw tonight. We can definitely say that.
Yeah.
Man, Ridge looked like an absolute monster.
Yeah.
This is how Cross should have been booked on the main roster.
Oh, that's a
Absolutely destroying people. Like, he ripped this kid's poor jacket off of him. Now, it's a silly idea to wrestle in a jacket nonetheless, but the guy pulls it off and he's really talented with it. But what did you think? It wasn't a long affair, so there's probably not going to be a lot to say. But what do you think of Ridge tonight?
Yeah, I definitely like how they booked him strong, and I feel like coming off of the Legato and Hit Row match, the crowd was super hot for this match, which I really liked. Even though it's a short one, they were booing Ridge from the beginning, and they were cheering for Gio from the beginning. I like how they were into it, even though it was the next match already, and they were super hot about it. And I feel like in NXT it's been kind of inconsistent when you have the crowd like up and down most of the show. But at this time, I like how the crowd was so into it, even though it was such a short match. So
yeah, and I think the crowd is important to say, and I'm going to mention this because we didn't mention it last week, and it's something I think we should mention. These are tape shows. Like, I don't want to blow anybody's mind here, but these shows have been for some reason taped. I don't know why. I'm assuming it's because of Cross's availability with Raw and being on the road, would be my best guess as to why they had to tape some of this, is because some of the talent that they're using from here on out might not be available for the shows they need. And with my mind, it must be Cross that they're most worried about. So they tape things ahead of time. That being said, if these are taped crowds, wow, these crowds are really good.
okay.
And this is why NXT was always one of my favorite shows, because like you said, the crowd really makes the NXT product.
Yeah.
And it's starting to feel like Full Sail again. I know we're in the CWC and we're in the Performance Center, but it's giving me that feeling of, I still need to see Kyle back. I still need to see some of those familiar faces, but hopefully we'll start to see some of them flow back in as we go.
Mm-hmm.
We had a backstage segment with Frankie Monet, Robert Stone, and Jessie Kamea. Frankie's not happy about this losing thing. She's not used to it. She says she doesn't understand what the word means. I really thought this was a cute little segment. I think, again, the star in these is still Robert Stone. What did you think?
Yeah, I feel like it was short and to the point, and I really like Frankie's line. It was like, you and Jesse are used to losing, but I'm not used to that. So like, don't bring that into my side of it, because it's not my thing. I really love when she said that and how she pointed it out. But I really like how they're doing it, because I feel like everybody stands out at the same time, all three of them, when they do this.
Yeah, Jesse's getting a nice little rub off of this whole thing. I liked how she looked annoyed when she was lumped in with Robert Stone as a loser by Frankie Monet. You could see a visual like, wait, what?
Yeah,
I'm not a loser. I like that. Also, the end of this thing comes with we're going to remold this group in Frankie's image, Frankie's way, under Frankie's rules. Get it or get out. And I like how Robert Stone then takes it like it's Jesse's fault and starts berating her like, are you going to get in with it? And it's like, no, Robert, you're the one who has to get in line. So, yeah, it's building to something. I love intergender wrestling. I'm a guy who can get behind intergender wrestling, especially if it's more on the comical side, I would say. There's nothing wrong with seeing women wrestling men in a meaningful manner. But there's something special about the old Andy Kaufman style comedy match with the woman beating up the man. I could really get behind an NXT match between Robert Stone and Frankie Monet.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
Yeah, especially with the way Robert has been, his comical ways. I wouldn't mind seeing that, to be honest. I'm in for intergender wrestling when it's done the right way, and I think this will be a good one that they could actually give us, and I think the fans will like it.
Yeah, because there's not every man can wrestle every woman and make it look real. Some women can wrestle anybody and make it look real. I'm not the biggest fan of her, but Becky Lynch, I think she could go up against most of the men on the roster. But if you tried to book Karrion Kross versus Becky Lynch, it's not believable. But for some reason, and we're gonna sidetrack a little bit here because it's Ed and I kind of do that thing. With Tessa and Brian Cage, it made a lot of sense. The feud made sense. The two of them made the matches work, and you felt like she belonged in those matches. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is another one of those where you can make Frankie look better, even with Robert Stone just taking a beating from her. It makes her look more authoritative. It makes her look like a bigger star. And it gives her something to do while they figure out what's going on in this jumbled division as they move to the draft. Coming out of this, we had a great video package talking about Bobby Fish versus Roderick Strong, a match that NXT wants you to believe that you've never seen before. NXT might forget their own history. I don't. The Undisputed Era started with a feud between Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong. And when Bobby Fish got hurt, it turned into Adam Cole. And that's how Roddy joined the Undisputed Era in the first place, when he turned on Pete Dunne. That being said, I really enjoyed this match. However, I think you had a different opinion.
Yeah, for me, it's just, I don't know if it was the commercial break, the picture-in-picture, I feel like kind of threw me off, and it kind of made me disconnect from the match. And I felt like it went a little bit on too long, and when the action was good, we couldn't really see it because it was picture-in-picture, and I wish it hadn't been. If it had been, I think it would have been a different story, and I feel like the pacing wasn't for me, at least. But it wasn't that the match was bad, though, but I feel like it could have been better, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely agree that the picture-in-picture really hurt this match. I think out of every match in the card, I think this match most was hurt by the picture-in-picture. A lot of the other ones kind of made do with it, but this one got, like you said, it really got hurt by it. I didn't take a lot of notes in this match because I just fell into the match and watching these two guys work. You can tell when a match is just clicking and guys just know what they're doing. The match is probably a match that they've wrestled 100 times in halls around the country. It's a great little match. I love the finish. That Diamond Mine doesn't get involved. They're just beating the mat, trying to get their guy up. But it's enough to distract Bobby Fish to where he gets dumped over the top, gets tossed back in, gets a cheeky roll-up for 2, and then ends up eating the knee, and then the end of Heartache for a 3 count. I think it's the right decision. I thought it was, we all agreed that it probably wasn't the time for Diamond Mine to lose last week. Yeah. So it was nice to see them pick up the win this week. And we'll just skip to this part for later on. Kushida does a promo later on backstage where he says, you keep putting my name in your mouth. You want the match, you want the title, fine. Me and you. So that's going to be a really good match. I believe that's set for next week. I don't remember, but I know that it's not at TakeOver, I don't believe.
No, I don't think I don't remember him saying when it was. He just said, like, if you want the title, kind of like come and get it sort of thing. But okay. I don't remember. I don't have it in my notes, at least, of when the match was going to happen. Yeah,
I thought it was in that the package for a bunch of the things that are going to happen next week. But either way, when that match happens, hopefully it gets time. Hopefully the commercial break doesn't hurt it. And then part of my favorite part of the night now, Cameron Grimes and LA Knight. These two guys are just absolutely fantastic. I'm really enjoying them together. I think we're coming to the end, unfortunately. It looks like we're coming to the end. But they have a great backstage segment where they're basically both saying, I mean, I'm in this team, but you're not. I can't trust you. And my first note is, I wonder if this is the week that one of them turns. And I write that in my notes before the match starts. I just see the promo and I'm like, But what did you think of both the package going in and then the wonderful match between GYV and Knight and Grimes?
I really enjoyed it. I wish that LA hadn't walked out on this one. I wish it would have happened later on just to make it last longer, because I would have liked to see them as a tag team just because of how the banter has been going on. I would have liked to see that translated in the ring. So that's the part that I was like, I wish it wouldn't have happened this week. Maybe next week or the week after that would have been better. But even though he did it, I'm like, I like how Grimes was looking. The crowd was behind him when they went to the boo with him, and seeing DiBiase come in at the end and like encouraging him. And I'm like, made me think, yeah, it's over pretty soon, unfortunately.
Yeah. One of the things I mentioned about this match is it was hard to know what to do with this match, because you can't beat GYV here, because I don't subscribe to the tag teams need to beat thrown together tag teams. I think two single superstars are capable of pulling something together. But if you got two feuding superstars and you have a well-oiled tag team, a lot of times that tag team needs to win. This was a well-done design to get to that point where GYV can get the big win by hitting the Ticket to Mayhem on a one-man show of Cameron Grimes, who had, like you said, the entire crowd in the palm of his hand. I never would have thought when this guy started in NXT that we'd be looking at him as a pure babyface. But this gimmick has brought him all the way to the babyface side. And they're going to have a hard time turning him heel again.
Oof,
they really are going to have a hard time making him a heel.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then I loved Ted, and I wrote down a couple of things that I heard him say. I told you that he wouldn't be there for you. I know you're a man of your word, but you need to find a way out of this. And that was the moment where I'm like, oh, this is over.
Yep.
I'm like, Ted, I love you. I love babyface Ted, but this means that the match is coming. I think this is headed to a takeover match again. I think they're going to absolutely kill it again. And I think LA Knight wins the $1 million title at TakeOver. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully this can continue. But it seems like that's where we're headed. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I can see it definitely happen at the match at TakeOver. And I'm like, I don't want it to end, but at the same time, I really want to see that match again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for this match again. But I know that every time I see them wrestle each other, we're just getting closer and closer to the end of this, and it makes me sad. Because I love these two guys together, but, I mean, theoretically this could continue with beyond this, with Grimes as the face, with the title, and having LA Knight chase him. But I think once he conquers LA Knight, I think that LA Knight should move up. I could see LA Knight versus Samoa Joe as a nice little filler feud for Samoa Joe if he wins the world title after Karrion Kross. But speaking of another match that's definitely happening at TakeOver, where I wrote, awesome package, match sold, let's freaking go, is this awesome video package between Dakota Kai and with shots of, as I call her, Big Mommy Cool, Raquel Gonzalez. Go ahead and tell me about what you thought about this package, and then we can, continue talking about it afterwards, I guess.
I was expecting more like an in-ring promo from Dakota at first, but then when I saw the video package, I was like, this was good. I like how they went back all the way from the beginning, because I saw that Mae Young Classic, and I like when people recognize that Raquel came from there. And I love going into the video package all the way from the beginning of how she started up until now, showing that evolution that she's had the past couple months. I really love that. And to say the least, my favorite line out of that whole promo is when Dakota says, I'm not a psychic. I was like, I love this. I can't wait for this match. And then they announced that they have Raquel actually reacting next week as well. So I'm like, I cannot wait to see how it goes, especially after this promo from Dakota, just by herself like this.
Yeah. A couple of things that I noticed in this is with that line that you mentioned, Kevin Owens was live tweeting NXT tonight. I really enjoyed his tweeting. Some of the things were great. Some of them weren't so great. I didn't like his burial of Joe Gacy versus Trey Baxter, but we'll get to that in a minute. I think he was more putting over Odyssey Jones in that, but we'll get to that in a minute. But he says in his tweet, I turned on her. I'm not a sidekick. And then she used a sidekick to turn on her. He's like, that's absolute genius. And I did love that. The other thing I wanted to mention is I love how they brought this whole point of the point of no return from Dakota was the moment Io passed up Dakota for a title match to give it to Raquel, and how she's like, that ungrateful piece of, I raised you from nothing. And when you got a title match, you didn't think, hey, I should take this wonderful opportunity for myself and pass it to somebody else. No, I didn't earn this. I'm like, oh, such a great heel move, because she makes it so much about her in that moment that you can't not think, oh, you're such a despicable heel. She clearly makes herself the heel, which is ideal, because I don't think Raquel knows if she's a heel or a face yet. She wrestles as a heel, but she tries to act like a babyface. So she skirts that line, and I don't think she knows which way she needs to go. So it was nice that NXT took the opportunity to really make Dakota the heel. I mean, on top of the turn, but to clearly put her in the heel side and not be like, oh no, I'm a good guy. I did this on, for the good of everybody. It was like, no, I did this for me. How dare she not love me? How dare she not give me the opportunity? I love a good me promo.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed out KO's tweet, because that's another thing that I had on my notes. I was like, if he doesn't bring it up, I'll bring it up, because I love that tweet. When I saw it, I'm like, priceless.
I miss KO on commentary for NXT. I know he did it like once or twice at one point, and I'm just like, oh, I want KO in NXT so bad, and I really hope that if we do get some moves up, down, left, and right, however you want to look at it with the draft, I would love to see KO on NXT. I think there are some really cool matchups, and I think he above everybody else who's come back down or could come back down, I think he was the one who was most shortchanged by his NXT run, because it catapulted him so high with the John Cena Open Challenge that he had no choice but to move up, because he was in a program with Cena, and there was no going back after that. But KO is just absolutely magnificent. And then we move into Joe Gacy versus, as I keep putting in my notes because I can't see him any other way, Blake Christian. He's not Blake Christian anymore. He's Trey Baxter. But for some reason, I can't unsee Blake Christian in this match. I got distracted by this match with things on Twitter, because this was right about the moment that I noticed the Acclaim stuff pop up.
Yep.
And we'll save that for another day.
We'll save that for Saturday.
For Saturday, and possibly tomorrow if I can convince the boys to talk about it. But anyways, that was what caught me during this match. But I caught a couple of things, and I went back after the show and kind of picked out some stuff. Trey Baxter does a dive outside the ring. He gets caught in midair. Great catch by Joe Gacy, who then throws him into the ropes, to which he bounces off the ropes into an elbow to the face. God, that looked painful. There's no fun way to make that landing look good. Needless to say, these are two guys in the breakout tournament who I don't know a ton about. I've heard the name Joe Gacy on the indie scene for a long time. I've heard of Blake Christian. I've watched some of his stuff in Impact. I watched a couple of his things in New Japan. Both guys are super talented. We can see that NXT is definitely putting over some of the smaller stars, I think, in this tournament, I would say. You got Carmelo Hayes, who got the big win, and you got, in this match, Blake Christian, Trey Baxter. gets out of a top rope move, and then hits a 450 stomp. Wow, that's an impressive looking finisher. Good thing Finn's gone, because that could have possessed some problems if Finn was still there. I don't know how move superiority works, but I'm sure Finn would have had something to say about that if they were still there. What are your thoughts? It wasn't a long match. It took about 5-6 minutes.
Yeah.
I felt like they could have gone longer, but the whole show felt like it moved tonight at a really good pace.
Yeah, I feel like this one would have been better if they had lasted a little bit longer. And like you said, it made me think about the tournament. Like overall, I feel like they're pushing more like the smaller guys like Carmelo and him. And even though I never saw him before, I used to see him as Blake Christian because that's how I saw him on Twitter. So when I see Trey Baxter, I'm like, who is this? Because that is not his name. But I like the back and forth at first that they had, because I feel like it showed a little bit of Joe and a little bit of Trey. And then after that, just Trey took over. And I was so surprised that he did, and surprised that they actually had him win the match as well. But I felt like at first it was a good back and forth, so we could see a little bit of both of them, and then just Trey takes over and he wins. Which, I don't know, it was surprising to me, but I wish I could have seen more of it because I really enjoyed it. At least that's how it was with the pacing.
Yeah, and I think now that we're at the halfway point in the tournament, we can kind of take a look back and look at this. So now we have Duke Hudson, who was formerly known as what was his name on the main roster? He was with MVP. Oh crap, I forget. It'll come to me at some point. I'm sure JPJ is typing it in the chat right now. We have Hudson versus Carmelo Hayes, which is, as we all said last week, is basically the foregone conclusion of the finals of this tournament. And then we have Odyssey Jones versus Trey Baxter. The one thing I can say about the two tournaments that we've had for the breakout tournaments is nothing that you expect to happen is going to happen in these tournaments. Because I remember the first one, and I thought that there was a lot of surprises in that first tournament, because I thought Jonah Rock might go farther and he didn't, or Bronson Reed. I was surprised when they had Jordan Miles win that one. Not that NXT is going to remind you that Jordan Miles did anything in NXT, or that there was a winner to the first tournament, because they're not going to bring that up anymore. But that tournament did a really good job of making stars out of those guys. And I'm worried that this tournament isn't doing the same thing for the guys that are in there right now. What about you? What do you think about that?
I feel like compared to last week, I think it was, or the week before that, I feel like the promos have been helping me get to know these guys, especially because at least the promos for this week, they were not back to back. They took a promo, they had a couple matches, and then did a promo afterwards. So it wasn't all in a row. And I feel like they helped me get to know the guys before the match even started, versus how they did it back to back. I think it was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And I really like that, at least. And I feel like I've been getting to see the guys, but I want to see more of them. So I feel like aside from the tournament, I want to see more from each one of these guys.
And as JPJ just put in our little private chat, Brendan Vink is the answer to who Duke Hudson was on the main roster. I agree. The promo packages worked way better this week than they did the week before. NXT has really, really streamlined it. They had that 1 week where everything felt like it was out of control timeline-wise. But since that week, they've hit this perfect pacing where the backstage segments are 60 to 90 seconds, no more, no less. They really hit the high notes and then bounce out before you get too much. I liked how the Way promo was separated from Indy's promo. That could have all been one big problematic mess, with her being like, I don't know who to choose, and then being like, what do you mean? You're part of the Way. But they separated it and made it really nice and convenient for that. But with this tournament, I don't want them to lose track of all the guys in this tournament, because Jiro's going to be a great star, but he got absolutely murdered and jobbed out to Ridge Holland tonight. And I just don't want these guys to go unused going forward once we get past this. NXT is locked with talent, and it could look very different after TakeOver and after the draft. And I really hope that we see more of these guys, because we're seeing talented individuals getting an opportunity here. And I really hope that that doesn't stop. That these guys get a chance, and you got Carmelo Hayes, who could be a star, but he could be a star of the cruiserweight division too. On either side, Jiro is definitely a cruiserweight star coming up. Trey Baxter is definitely a cruiserweight division star coming up. Odyssey Jones and Joe Gacy kind of filled that Bronson Reed role. And Brendan Vink is definitely that cocky, I'm too good for you heel, kind of filling that Adam Cole role as Adam Cole kind of makes his way potentially out of NXT. We haven't even brought that up in that report that came out this week. What do you think about that? We'll take a moment here to talk about that. Your thoughts on Adam Cole and the potential that he may not be with NXT after SummerSlam?
I feel like it's gonna be difficult in a way because this is how I saw it. I saw a lot of people going, "Oh, he should be in Ring of Honor and go back with the Kingdom, or he should be in AEW, go with the Bullet Club." Nobody. I'm like, first, it's his decision. It doesn't matter where he goes. And another thing that I keep thinking about is like, yeah, I watch WWE and I watch NXT all the time, but I'm loyal to the talent. So if Adam Cole decides to go to Ring of Honor, I'll try to watch Ring of Honor because I like Adam. If he goes to AEW, then I'll keep watching AEW as I have this past, for so long. So it makes me like think that people are like, oh, I'm not gonna watch AEW if he goes there because NXT's down the drain with Adam Cole, and I don't know. Those kind of opinions are the ones that made me like, I don't know. It kind of irked me, but at the same time, we don't know where he's going. What if he decides to stay? He could decide, that. So if he does, I think he should go to the main roster. I'm like, I feel like there's nothing left for him to do in NXT, unfortunately. As much as I like him to stay in NXT, but at the same time, being how it's been the main roster, you get kind of worried about talent like him because it's one of those guys. It doesn't look like the guys that Vince likes to push. At the same time, so I don't know. It's kind of in between about it.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, the story is right now, as we know it, rumor is that Adam Cole is working without a contract. He's working on a handshake deal until TakeOver, and then supposedly after that, apparently Adam Cole has no more dates with NXT as of this moment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with Adam Cole there. I honestly think he's staying. I think he's the king of NXT. So if he gets to stay in NXT, he can call his shot and have whatever matches he wants and continue to make people look like a star. If he wants to cash in big, AEW's right there, and he's got every connection he needs to get in there. Not only is he, God rest his soul, Adam Cole, dead by monster, but he's got the connection with the Bucks from PWG and all that kind of stuff in the Bullet Club. His girlfriend is obviously the AEW Women's Champion. We can't neglect to say that Britt Baker's there. We know he's been at AEW, holiday parties.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be a star wherever he goes. Would I love to see him back with Matt and Mike in the Kingdom? Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'd be a step backwards for Adam. But if that's what he wanted to do and bring them back to relevancy, that'd be great. If he goes to the main roster, there's still a whole bunch of dream matches waiting to happen there. I think he'd be safe. I think he'd end up I honestly think he'd end up like Kevin or Sammy on the main roster. Would he be as high as we all want him to be? No, he wouldn't be. But he would be a potential main eventer. He could have a title reign. And he'd end up in a mid-card feud doing the Adam Cole's shtick and just doing it to a huge degree and getting... I would give him back the Yui music, though. I think if he does go up, I think he needs to have the Yui music again because this new music just don't cut it.
I miss that song, and I'm like, I understand when people do the timing because I love that about NXT. People, I'm like, this is the Triple H kids with their timing and their entrances. And I miss the baby going exactly where the theme song goes. And it doesn't match with this one. I don't like it. Honestly, no. I'm trying to hope it grows on me, but it hasn't so far. So that's why I'm hoping he goes back to, because I feel people will recognize that more than they recognize his new theme song, at least. So it makes me wonder. But I'm like, either way, I hope he goes somewhere that he'll grow and he'll be able to build something of himself and do new things. I feel like if he does leave, it'll be nice to have him do a nice send-off from NXT after everything he's done in his career there. But either way, I will follow him wherever he goes. So I hope whatever he ends up doing, I hope it's big enough for him because he deserves it.
Yeah, and another thing I want to mention here, just because we have the opportunity, I want to end tribalism in wrestling. Like, I know we do the War Report and we separate NXT and AEW, but you're a wrestling fan. You can watch as much wrestling as you want. If you like AEW, watch AEW. You don't have to trash NXT to like AEW.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a bigger fan of NXT than I am AEW. And I may give AEW a harder critique than I would NXT. The same segment that plays in NXT might not play the same on AEW for me. And that's a problem that I have to deal with. But that being said, like this war within fan bases that you have to like one or the other. It's WWE's the devil and AEW's no, both things can be true. AEW can be wonderful and WWE can be the devil, but they might not be mutually exclusive because one is what, so if you're a wrestling fan, enjoy wrestling. Whatever wrestling it is, support your favorite wrestler, support independent wrestling, especially support independent wrestling. Those guys go out there and kill it, and you will have no better time than going to your local indie show, whatever it is. I guarantee you, go to your local indie show and just watch that. You can pay, in most places, $10-$20 and get a wonderful night of entertainment out of it. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. I apologize.
No, I understand how you feel because I watch both shows and I enjoy them both on a weekly basis, and I critique them both equally. If I say today, like you said, the promo with Max, for example, I didn't enjoy that.
No.
I and it threw me off from what I was watching NXT. So things like that. If I had to say this didn't work this week on NXT, it didn't work. This didn't work on AEW, it didn't work. Or if it did work, I'll say it. It doesn't matter to me because I'm just talking about the talent here. I'm not here to like go, I'm loyal to this company versus this company. Those kind of words, I don't agree with them online. I critique them both and I praise them both on whatever they do it correctly. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so silly when you get the fan bases riled up and the companies are so bad at making it feel like you have to choose. And it's not. The reason why it works is because in the Monday Night Wars, we had no choice. You had to choose. Because at the time, almost nobody had a DVR because it was 1996. And I don't think any of us had heard of the word DVR. I think the closest thing we all had was TiVo, and only the rich had TiVo. At least that's how I felt. I know I didn't have it growing up. And I had to choose. I either watched Raw or I watched Nitro. Or I'd bounce back and forth between both. And the great thing about the Wednesday Night Wars even now is every week I tape NXT, I tape AEW, and I would watch NXT live almost every week, and then I would watch AEW. And then now I still sometimes don't watch AEW. Before I started reviewing it, I would watch AEW randomly and just keep it on DVR in case something good happened that I needed to see. But yeah, I really wish fan bases would stop that because fans ruin wrestling more than wrestling ruins wrestling. Even with the things we're hearing this week of, Ric Flair being released and Bray Wyatt being released. And these are terrible things. And, they're both of these guys are megastars and they're find their ways on their feet and they're going to be fine. Hopefully Bray Wyatt's head is in the right place and that he can find some comfort in his own head before he moves on to another project. But it's not like he's going to have a lack of options coming out of this. Yeah. So it's more about letting talent be themselves and following, like you said, following talent. If Adam Cole goes here, my viewership goes here because I want to watch this superstar do this. Mm-hmm. We had this segment with Io Shirai and Zoe Stark. Now, I thought last week was really funny. I thought it was really funny, the premise of this. Mm. And I'm like, Cameron Grimes and LA Knight are doing really good with this. This will be okay. And then we saw this week, and I was like, ooh, this didn't go over the way they hoped it would. And I looked on Twitter, and Twitter told me the same thing. And I'll use one word that I heard on Twitter a whole bunch from this segment, and the word is cringe. Do you feel the same way I do, that this was a funny but cringe segment?
This one, it was a tough one for me, I'll be honest, because I understand what they were trying to say. Kind of give us, like you said, that LA Knight Grimes sort of situation with them. And at first you're like, okay, this seems okay. But then first, Zoe's reaction to the food. That made me feel terrible. I'm like, I understand you're not going to enjoy somebody else's food because we're from different cultures. I understand that. But to have that facial expression as if like this is horrible the way it was and the way she was throwing it and everything like that, I'm like, that part made me think, I'm like, yeah, somebody, I'm like, I'm Puerto Rican. So if somebody comes in and does something like that too, like the food that I grew up eating, I would not feel comfortable like that. So that's one of the things that I didn't like about it. And I feel like there was no chemistry between them in this segment. I was hoping there would be. And even though they try to be comical, I feel like it didn't fit with what was going on. So I feel like it was like, the only line that I liked was when the waitress goes, "We speak the same language." That's the only part that I liked out of everything. I'm like, yeah, this was not what I expected it to be. I was hoping for a lot more from both of them. So I know this is not their fault. Whoever decided to write this segment, yeah, it was not what I was hoping for, and I don't want to see something like this again. I hope next week they do a little better with this part at least.
So when we talk about Legado del Fantasma and we talk about Hit Row, every week when we come out, we talk about them. And like we talked about how worried we were when we heard about the Mariachi Music Festival. And granted, had it gone on, it probably would have been fine. And when we talk about the Hit Rows, the cipher that they had, the celebration cipher that they had at TakeOver, it was fantastic and it was great for those who enjoyed it because of, and we've used this word before and we're going to use it again here, authentic. It felt like the talent involved is leading the charge on how they're being portrayed. There's nothing authentic about this promo. This is main event, this is main roster, slapstick comedy trial thing. If this were R-Truth instead of Zoe Stark, it probably would have been fine because R-Truth is hysterical. But my goodness, did this just fall completely so far out of the realm of anything that should have been considered funny? In a completely different way than the Acclaimed thing. And again, I hate bringing it up, but it's two different determinations of what's not funny in this world. This was attempted comedy, which at least was attempted comedy. Zoe Stark not understanding Japanese is fine. Io Shirai finding someone who speaks Japanese in a Japanese restaurant and ordering in Japanese is great. So far, we're doing so well. Zoe Stark taking a risk and going, yeah, what she had sounds great, is still good. We're still okay. It's not fantastic, but we're okay at this point. Mm-hmm. The food comes and Zoe looks at it like it's something Martian. It's eel and it's sushi. I'm not Japanese and I don't eat sushi, but I know better than to go to a Japanese restaurant and just go, yeah, I'll have what they're having. I also know better than to look at something green on a Japanese table and not know that that's not wasabi. On top of that, not know the chopsticks bit where she takes the chopstick and throws it halfway across the restaurant, and then at the end she takes the eel and she chucks it over her thing like she's giving it to the dog, and it slaps the countertop. That's on top of not being funny. That's just rude to a restaurant. Like, why would you have your babyface champion being this rude in a restaurant? And then the whole point of the promo makes Zoe Stark look even more like a heel. Because the like you said, the one line that you really liked was the waitress saying, "We speak the same language." She wasn't talking about speaking Japanese. They were talking about connecting on a level and understanding each other. And she's like, "Oh, so you're from Japan?" And she's like, "No, I'm from Kansas." And that was the point where, and Zoe still didn't get it. Mm-hmm. She had the confused and dumb look on her face, and I'm just like, oh, this segment was bad. Oh, it was. There was so much hope for this last week. We all, and I believe I'll rope JPJ into this, and if I'm wrong, JPJ correct me. we all thought this will be great. This will be funny. They'll get some cute little skits out of this. I honestly thought Karaoke Bar was going to be where we were going to go with this. And I thought that would be funny. And now I'm praying that this is the last one we get of this. Rope you in. Okay, JPJ. Good. I'm glad I at least remember that you were in this.
Yeah.
This was bad. There was never a point where it was really great, and it just went downhill further and further and further.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't get all the way in and it just went whoop, and I'm like,
yeah, there was no roller coaster to this. This was just a plane crash. It was. I know what they were going for. I get the jokes that they were trying to tell. It really didn't work. It was just, and like I said, I'll use the word again. It was cringe.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't translate the way they probably hoped it would. And not only that, the other part, like you mentioned, when she goes to the way, she's like, "Oh, you're from Japan too." Just because she looks Asian doesn't mean she's from Japan. That's that's it. And I'm like,
it was. I mean, it was. I think it was the determining line from we speak the same language, and her thinking that just because they speak the same language that they're from the same place. It's just. It makes Zoe Stark look either one, incompetent, two, a naive idiot, or three, someone who just doesn't give a crap. None of these three options are good in my mind. And maybe I'm wrong, but there was nothing authentic about this. And Io Shirai looked even more disinterested. And I'm wondering if that's because she knew what was coming, or that's just how her character's supposed to be portrayed in this. But either way, she's doing it really good because, God, did she not look like she wanted to be there.
And I feel like usually when promos like this happen, if the crowd is interested, you can kind of hear the crowd either booing or cheering in the background sometimes. And this was complete silent for me, which is another thing that I noticed. I'm like, usually people, if I see Io Shirai on screen, I'll scream, if I'm in there. Yeah. And I noticed there was no reaction to it. And I'm like, did you not notice that? I'm like, usually I know because I've been not only to TakeOver, but to NXT. I haven't been to the CWC like this, but I've been to Full Sail. And if we see a promo of somebody that we like, we'll let you know. And I noticed that there was no reaction to this whatsoever. And it makes you think like, there's a disconnect here on this part. And I was hoping it would be better, especially because of both of them involved. And I'm not blaming them. I'm like, whoever decided to go ahead with this, I hope they don't do it again next week and somebody else does it instead.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens next week if this causes them to pivot. Because like I said, it's taped. I think everything's probably taped up to TakeOver. So I'm hoping that they can pivot off of this. But if not, we might be in for something interesting next week. We then get a quick segment. Before that, we get a video package. I didn't write it in my notes, but I remembered it now. We get a great video package talking about Walter versus Ilya 2. This match, as much as I love Cross versus Joe, the way things are going with Cross on the main roster, I wouldn't be opposed to main eventing TakeOver with Ilya versus Walter. Especially if Ilya's going to go over. And it's going to be interesting because we get Ilya in the CWC next week, which I think is going to be great. Imagine if he comes face-to-face with somebody like the GYV, or if he comes face-to-face with, God forbid, Samoa Joe. Like, if these two intense, crazy individuals meet in the ring or backstage, that could be gold as they go for their own versions of gold.
And I can imagine, now that you mentioned Joe, I can just imagine Joe being frustrated from this week and having Ilya just starting a promo and just getting attacked by Joe because Joe was frustrated from the week before. Something like that would work for both of them.
Yeah. But this match is going to be fantastic. This is a great promo package with a whole bunch of main roster and everybody that they could find talking about how great Ilya versus Walter #1 is. If you still haven't seen that and you didn't take our word on it last week, I urge you again, go out on the network, find this match, watch this match. It is brutal. It is violent in the most unique and wrestling-oriented violence you can possibly imagine. Like, this isn't violent like Nick Gage and in GCW or Jericho or, it is violent in the way of it's Walter physically tearing this poor man apart with chops and slaps and just brutally beating down Ilya. This match is going to be so amazing. And so I'm so glad that it's happening at TakeOver. Because with no NXT UK takeovers happening for quite a while right now, it's nice to see these two guys getting a main stage. We then have, speaking of Cross and Joe, Cross comes out and stands on the announce table and taunts Joe. Joe comes out with his new security team. We didn't mention this earlier in the thing, but Regal informs Joe that he now has a security team that was his helpers that are now his protectors, because Regal wants to keep Joe and Cross from touching each other until TakeOver. Good luck, William. Best of luck. I don't think it's going to happen. But Joe absolutely destroys his security team as Cross gets back out after taunting Joe and saying who's provoking who. We then go on to the main event, which is the love her or lose her match. And the first line I have is, God, I love these two facing each other. Dexter Lumis is such a unique talent. He's unique that, like, he only works on a smaller brand. He would never get over in a super large community. I loved him as Samuel Shaw in Impact, where he kind of had a version of this gimmick there years ago. And I've loved how he's developed it for NXT. They've really kind of defined it. Him and Indy have the absolute best chemistry. I didn't know much about Indy Hartwell going into her run in NXT or into this feud this thing with Dexter. But I can't get over how amazing these two are with chemistry. I don't know if they're friends inside or outside of the ring. God, I hope so, because the ending of this show, if they don't know each other closely, then my God, somebody's going to have some questions to answer when they get home.
Yeah.
This is a great match. Johnny Gargano he has the Shawn Michaels ability to sell like he's almost overselling, but not quite oversell. I wrote that he sells like a champ, where he's half overselling and half perfection. He's absolute amazing. What were your thoughts on this match in general, and then we'll get into the finish?
I was not expecting this match to be the main event, even when it was announced. So when I kept going through the card and I noticed, I was like, yeah, this is going to end up being the main event because there's nothing else that was advertised before. I was really surprised about that. But I really liked having Indy come in from the beginning, and she didn't interfere or anything like that. She was always like in between there. And I love how Candice came in between the match. One of my favorite parts to say, it was when Candice is trying to pull Indy, and Indy's holding Dexter's hand from under the ring. Yep. I thought that was so cute. It was really well done. And I love how he's trying to hold the ropes, but he caresses her before he does it, and then he gets to the rope. Those little details like that about them, I really enjoy. So I'm really glad you see those little bits and pieces that, aside from the wrestling, those other parts that you remember too from the match. And I really liked it. I'm like, I was not expecting Gargano to win, I'll be honest. I thought it would have made it sort of like a Knight and Grimes sort of situation, and having him join the way, because I thought that would have been interesting too. But it makes you curious of what's going to happen with them next week, especially after that ending.
Yeah, and I think Cody definitely, our friend Cody from Love Wrestling puts it out here great. Johnny sells like Ziggler without the extra flair that puts Dolph over the top. And I agree. I think he has the over the top, but his over the top is more facial, whereas Dolph kind of flips and flops a little bit like Shawn. But the three of them are honestly, it's personal preference over who sells best between the three of them. I've always been a Shawn Michaels mark, so I'm not going to sit here and ever say anything bad. I think one of Shawn Michaels' best-selling performances ever was the match with Hogan. So take my response with a grain of salt on overselling, because that's the most oversold match in the world. Getting back to this, though. Yes, I had that in my notes too. Gargano locks in the Gargano escape, but Indy gets on the apron and lures Loomis over to her. And instead of grabbing the ropes, he caresses her face. And she has this golden look on her face, like it is the best thing in the world. Oh, I love Indy. She's so great. I'm a Pop Dex kind of guy, I'll be honest. I want him and Poppy. I thought that was a cute little mix. Because they're just so polar opposites. Like him and Indy look like they go together, but Dexter and Poppy are just so out there. And she's on NXT enough where I thought it could have worked. Like you could bring her on and just have her in and out.
Yeah.
Triple H to her like another one of his daughters. It seems like.
Yeah.
But this match was fantastic. I was really surprised that Johnny Gargano looks at her and says, "It's over here." He hits the one final beat, and I was waiting for the kick out.
Yep.
That never came. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've seen the spoilers for this. I know that there's a moment here. And I'm like, what happened? Is this something that happens later on in the taping maybe? And I'm like, maybe there's something more to this later on. And they're walking up the ramp, and Johnny's, he gives her a hug, and he's like, I'm sorry, but I had to. This is what's best for you. And I love the father figure thing to this girl who's like 10 years younger than him. Like way too old to be his daughter, but I love the whole, like they feel like a family. And I love that. And they're so goofy and wacky. And they're walking up the ramp, and Indy's getting further and further away from them because every 2 or 3 steps she stops and she looks. She just looks over her shoulder, and Dexter's just sitting there like, and it just, she keeps looking and she keeps looking, and they finally get to the top of the ramp, and she's had enough, and she runs away from Mommy and Daddy, and and she runs to the ring and she tackles Dexter Loomis, and my God, I thought they'd have to throw up a PG-13 for a minute here as she straddles Dexter Loomis and makes out with him for a good 3 or 4 minutes of television time. And you have Beth Phoenix in all her glory on commentary. Oh God, Beth has been so fantastic in this. By the way, she has this role has brought out the best of her, like Kofi Kingston brought the best out of Byron Saxton, leading into Kofi Mania.
Yeah, I feel like she sells the Index so much to us that it makes you want to cheer for it even more. And I like that not only she does it on commentary, but she does it on social media as well, which is my favorite thing in the world.
The best thing is that Beth takes this NXT job like it's a job. Like on her Twitter, it's her and her family, her and Edge, and then Index. And that's it. That's what her Twitter is. It's her looking beautiful on Twitter. It's her with her family and Edge, and then it's Index. But she's wrapped up in this, and it's just so beautiful, and it's so amazing. And then it started to get a little awkward because Indy's just straddling him, and she's just like, she's literally making out with him, and I'm like, is something going to happen? Like, are we leading to something? Nope. They go off the air with her and her man. So I don't know where this goes next. The Way has now Johnny Gargano and Candice. Maybe Austin comes back, maybe not. Maybe Indy comes back, maybe not. I think we're headed to a mixed tag at TakeOver, I would imagine. That's where my best guess. God, this TakeOver could have so many matches on it. Like, it's hard because TakeOver we know is 5, maybe 6 matches tops. And we're going to get back to a comment that was made in the Twitter chat a little while ago. And Cody says, how do you possibly pick a SummerSlam, and I think he means TakeOver 36 SummerSlam weekend, main event between Joe and Cross and Dragunov and Walter? Both are going to be physically brutal battles. One should open and one should headline. I wholeheartedly agree. It's honestly, I think it's going to be storyline-wise what they're planning on doing. And that's how they're going to pick their main event. I don't know. This TakeOver, we have 3 confirmed matches for TakeOver. We're going to get the women's title match between Dakota and Raquel. And then we have the UK title, and we have the NXT title. We have room for 2 more matches. We're obviously going to get Cole versus O'Reilly 3.
Yeah.
They have a segment next week, and I'm assuming that's going to be the contract signing type of thing for this next match.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
And so that's 4. So that means we have room for one more match. And that one more match, maybe 2 more matches, is going to be a toss-up between the finals of the Breakout tournament. We're going to have a possible mixed tag between Johnny and Candice and Indy and Dexter. We could have the Cruiserweight title match.
And the LA Knight and Grimes.
And the LA Knight versus Cameron Grimes. So it's 4 potential. And honestly, if they made TakeOver 3 hours and put all 4 of those matches on, I'd still watch TakeOver at 3.5 hours. But they won't do it because, JPJ, Hit Row versus Legado del Fantasma in a 6-way. That's a brand new TakeOver, by the way. That's 5 matches that could be on TakeOver that could make another TakeOver.
I feel like being that the TakeOver is ending the SummerSlam weekend, they should definitely make it longer than the usual TakeOvers, especially if they want to go off with a bang, especially with being SummerSlam weekend, And not only that, but we haven't had anything with the women's tag team titles either, so we don't know what's happening there. I mean, we're getting these segments between these two, but so far they haven't mentioned about any contenders. They kind of made it seem or hinted at that Casey Catanzaro and Casey are going to go towards that, but we don't. And Kate, sorry, they're probably going to go towards that. But we also have Frankie Monet over here with Jesse as well. But they haven't. I feel like they've been shuffling within the women's tag division.
Yeah, and we have Gigi Dolan and Mandy Rose's. I honestly can't remember her name. She's the one who lost the other night to Frankie Monet.
Is it Cora? It's not Cora. I think it's her name.
Well, Gigi Dolan. Oh, it could be Cora Jade. But it's that team that Mandy Rose was talking to last week.
Yeah.
So there's another tag team there.
Yeah. And I feel like being that they put that in last week, I was expecting some kind of other like backstage promo to like continue that. And we never saw them during the show. I was expecting some kind of, in there to give us more hints as to what's happening with them because they were on the screen for 30 seconds last week.
Yep.
So
not to mention, we also we're continuing to talk about matches that we could get at TakeOver. MSK could have a tag team title match against either GYV or somebody else in the tag division. I mean,
I think GYV is going to get towards that one.
That would be my guess, and that would be my guess to put on there. But they haven't started promoting it yet, so I'm assuming we're not getting it for TakeOver. We've got a raid from Jupiter Vision of 12 viewers. So thank you for the raid, guys. We really appreciate it. We're just finishing up talking about NXT, but if you have any thoughts or questions about NXT, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I honestly don't know how you decide between what match goes ahead in headlines and what match goes ahead and opens the show. I would not want to be the bookers of NXT TakeOver. That's for damn sure.
I feel like it's a tough one, but I'm like, I haven't seen NXT UK. I really want to. So it makes me feel like to get people interested, it would be nice to have the main event, especially because we don't see them that often compared to the regular people from NXT because of COVID. So I would like to see the main event because I feel like Cross and Joe should just open and have people like get fired up when Joe wins, if he does during that match, for example.
And Jupiter Vision drops him with a question, and it says, is Cameron Grimes the best thing in NXT right now? And he believes it is. Honestly, he's one of my favorite things in NXT. Absolutely one of my favorites. Samoa Joe back in NXT is absolutely amazing. Hit Row and Legado del Fantasma is money in the making. It's a feud I hope never ends, and you could constantly keep re-throwing these guys one and another. You could mix up these matches incredibly well. Especially if Legado can find a female. If BFAB's ever going to get in that ring, you could throw a female in there and make these an intergender 8-way. But no, Cameron Grimes is absolutely one of the best things, not only in NXT, but on WWE television, full stop. Yeah. I mean, WWE television, you have Roman Reigns, you have Big E, and you have Cameron Grimes. In my mind, that's the best things on WWE television, full stop. I don't know about you. But, this was a really interesting episode of NXT. it didn't feel like it had any stellar moments, but nothing felt like it had that roller coaster drop other than that one backstage segment with Io and Zoe. Everything else felt like it belonged on the show. Everything else felt like it was a nice even ride. A couple ups, a couple downs, but nothing drastic like we've had the last couple weeks.
And the pacing was really well done. It wasn't like it happened like 2 weeks ago, how the pacing felt really off. It didn't feel like an NXT show. I feel like they're back on it again. And, I like that the promos were not back to back like it was last week, at least. So that's another thing that I found really positive about this show. And I feel like you said, like, we don't know what's going to happen at TakeOver aside from what they have confirmed already. So it makes you wonder, what other matches they're going to confirm. And I do hope they make that TakeOver longer than usual, because if this is how the weekend ends, they better end with everybody talking about NXT and TakeOver.
I mean, it's going to be the 3 nights starting on Friday with AEW Rampage at the United Center, and then SummerSlam on Saturday, and then NXT on Sunday. Oh man, the wrestling world is not ready for this weekend.
It's like we're gonna go like this until we get to Monday Night Raw.
Oh God, Raw is going to be such a fall off after that. If especially if Goldberg wins that world title and there's no Big E. Raw could really feel bad, and I just made myself sad. To make myself feel happy, tell me what you've got going on this week for Love Wrestling.
I'm thinking probably the React show for Saturday, and then blowing off stream for Saturday evening-ish, I would say, based on my time zone. What do you have for this week?
I have the War Report with JPJ and Pluggo tomorrow night. Hopefully JPJ is feeling good. If not, I think it might be me and Pluggo, but we'll see what happens from there. But AEW's got a killer homecoming show scheduled with a main event, I would assume, the main event of Malachi Black versus Cody. And I'm just praying against praying that Cody realizes that this is the time to lose. But Cody doesn't have a good track record of knowing when he needs to lose and when he needs to win. So, this could be bad.
Don't count on it just in case.
I've been the cynic in this whole feud of Cody Rhodes isn't going to know better and he's going to put himself over. But I think he's learned his lesson after going over when they went back to fans and when he beat the guy from the Nightmare Factory, Agogo, yeah. I think he's going to learn from beating Agogo, and he'll put over Malachi Black. Oh, I hope
that's my hope.
And then, hopefully if I'm feeling up to it this week, because I didn't get the chance to do either one this week. Saturday night, we have Blowing Off Stream. It sounds like we might have some Among Us going on, so that could be fun. The more the merrier for that one. So that'll be great with all the new additions to the Love Wrestling team. And then we have the Saturday React show with Parrish, myself, and you. So that'll be fun. And anybody else on the Love Wrestling team. I know we had a Mighty Joe run in this week from the bus and from the house tour. So that was always great. We had a lot to talk about this week with the release of Bray Wyatt and all the Cardona Gage stuff and the Gage versus Jericho stuff. And this week is no different. We're going to have another AEW show, so I'm sure they're going to tease CM Punk again. We're getting closer and closer to that show at Arthur Ashe, so we're probably going to get a tease for some Daniel Bryan there. I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody chant CCC tomorrow night. Are we going to get a Ric Flair sighting tomorrow night? Does this man have a non-compete? He's a Legends contract guy, so there might not be a non-compete clause with that. Could we see him coming out and doing a full Horseman thing with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard? Could we see him teaming up with his potential new son-in-law, Andrade? All kinds of good stuff happening there. So the War Report tomorrow night, Saturday Reacts, and then Sunday Brunch for a lot of us will be at least, if not on the show, in the chat. So we want to thank again our sponsors, RK Athletics. If you need any workout training, you can go ahead and look at them. I know they were doing during the pandemic, they were doing some virtual training, Spencer said. So maybe, even if you're not in the Canadian area, you can probably still get it. Follow Love Wrestling on all the different places that we have here, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok. I know the Love Wrestling TikTok is always interesting. Join us if you're in the Canadian area. Rate this podcast /Love Wrestling CA to help us become the #1 podcast in Canada. And most of all, just enjoy all the wrestling, because while this is an NXT show, again, reiterate, tribalism in wrestling is stupid. Don't let anybody make you think you can't enjoy any different part of wrestling. No matter how bad wrestling can be on television, and how bad the product is, and how bad some of the things that happen on the television product that don't get edited out can be, remember that you can like wrestling regardless of what happens on the show or by the company who does it. Just because the company doesn't treat the people the certain way doesn't mean that the talent in the ring don't deserve your attention. These guys and girls go out there and kill it for all of us to enjoy. And remember that, a kind word is the most important thing. Alexa Bliss this week has had a rough week where she had to put her Twitter account on private because wrestling fans can't tell the difference between a character that Alexa Bliss plays and Bray Wyatt being released, and how the two are mutually exclusive, but somehow they're tied together in a lot of people's minds to the point where she has to privatize her Twitter account. Jimmy gets nailed for DUI and Naomi has to do the same thing. Just be kind on social media. I know it can be a cesspool sometimes, but there's a reason why this place is called Love Wrestling, and we try to focus on the good stuff, because we just want to love wrestling and love each other. There's no reason not to. It makes the product so much better when you just find the good in things and you try to leave the bad as this is what didn't work, this is how we can make it better, and move on. Again, I'll get off my soapbox. I apologize. JPJ's like, I'm never letting him host the show again. But anyways, I want to, again, thank JPJ. I know he's not feeling well, so thank him for producing the show tonight for us, because I didn't learn how yet. So a big thanks to him for trusting us with the show. And remember, everybody, to keep following us. We'll have a War Report tomorrow, and follow Love Wrestling on Twitter, and see what other shows we've got coming up, because I know we got a whole bunch of stuff coming this week. Until then, have a great night.